Welcome back to the Wide Shut webcast, bringing you the alternative news headlines of the day, not clouded by big business or government agendas. Two stories on my radar today. UN still pushing unsubstantiated claims against Iran's Parchin base. The UN, of course, being a Western-created mechanism for global control under the guise of international peace. And the second story today, Chatham House praise Kony 2012 propaganda. Chatham House being the UK version of the Council on Foreign Relations. So let's hit this Iran thing first. The International Atomic Energy Agency are still pumping out this discredited rhetoric about an evil bus-sized container at the Parchin military base, which simply must mean Iran is building nuclear weapons. No real evidence, just this cartoonish plot device they've somehow worked into the story. There's this metal container, therefore it's fine if we bomb Iran. Well, no, it's not fine if we bomb Iran. Where's the evidence that this container has anything to do with nuclear weapons? It's completely absurd. But because they tell you that, and that's the illusion they've created, then it must be true. Of course, we exposed all this a few months back in an article and webcast here at Wide Shut. The links are below if you're listening to this on YouTube. But when you cut through what's implied in the mainstream media, there's absolutely no evidence that there's anything untoward at this military site. And the very idea that we have to go in and inspect it to prove whether there's things there or not is completely absurd, because there's no reason to do that in the first place. Everything has been based on lies. The very concept of a nuclear weapons program is baseless, with no evidence. It would be like if I went to my neighbour and just accused him of having a meth lab in his house with no evidence whatsoever, and then he has a greenhouse built, and I see this greenhouse and say, we must inspect this greenhouse in case there's a meth lab in there. But the very idea that there is a meth lab is something I just made up. That's not how things work in the world, not for sovereign nations. Now, Iran claims the container is a toilet block, which may or may not be true. One thing Iran does like to do is mock the West and Israel, because they know how absurd their claims are. So a lot of the time they don't always bother being serious. Ahmadinejad will just laugh and turn things around on the news reporters that are interviewing him or whatever. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a toilet block, but that's what they've claimed a few times in state newspapers over there. Not that they're under any obligation to tell anybody what is in their military sites. But if we go to the last IAEA report itself, rather than, the politicised rhetoric and the implied things that come out through our media, they admit that there's no evidence that this container is for nuclear weapons. There's no evidence of warheads being built. There's no trucks shipping uranium to this military site. And if there was, it would be 70% behind the weapons grade uranium that you need to build a nuclear weapon. There's no radioactive craters in the desert where they've done these nuclear tests. You can't do much of a nuclear test in a little container. There's no seismic activity, there's nothing. It's just a little bus-sized metal container. Now, it may be used in testing high-grade explosives, which is perfectly acceptable for a sovereign nation to do at one of its military bases. Do we invade America's military bases every time a new structure pops up in one of theirs? No. And as I noted in the article, it's been on record since at least 1997 that the base is used for high explosive testing. It's only now, or only in the past few years, that they've decided it must be for a nuclear weapon. And remember, Iran, which was under no obligation to let inspectors into the country under the terms that they're now pushing on them, allowed the IAEA into Parchin, and they found absolutely nothing. But now, because this tin can appears, they want to go in all over again, and have pumped out loads of headlines to further propagandise the Western public, because we all know they actually just want to bomb the hell out of them and expand the empire anyway. That's the whole point. Former IAEA Inspector Robert Kelly agrees that the claim is crazy. We've been led by the nose to believe that this container is important, when in fact it's not important at all, the ex-chief weapons inspector in Iraq told the Real News Network. You have to be crazy to do hydrodynamic explosives in a container, he said. There's no reason to do it. They're done outdoors on firing tables. And then the scientist that they say helped build this container isn't even a nuclear scientist. When you follow the leads, they're just lying. All of this is propaganda. It's as simple as that. And it's all being rehashed today in the media. I guess it's that old saying, tell a lie enough times and people begin to believe it. That's why we must counter their lies. So please check out the links to the original article I did completely debunking this whole Iran threat and the Parchin base. Also listen to the webcast I did about an hour long debunking the whole Iran nuclear threat, and let's hope we can turn this thing around. It would be a day of dark humour if we all decided to invade Iran because of a nuclear threat, when the IAEA are pressured into pumping out this propaganda by Israel, which is a nuclear state not even signed up to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Irony at its best. But anyway, let's move on to story number 2 today. Globalist think tank calls Kony 2012 propaganda a watershed moment for international interference. Chatham House, the UK's sister organisation to the Globalist Council on Foreign Relations in America, has unsurprisingly praised the Kony 2012 propaganda video for how it successfully targeted young people and helped push policy changes by Western governments. One speaker from Human Rights Watch told the invitation-only group that the method by which Kony 2012 was produced was successful and can be regarded as a watershed moment for advocacy. She said it was very 21st century, which appealed to a younger generation. And as I say in the article, this is no surprise. Chatham House is a New World Order advocate. They advocate interfering and invading other countries and being the world's policeman. That's what they were set up to promote. So it's no surprise that they would love when a con man comes out with this slick propaganda video to support their interventionist agenda. And if there's any doubt who Chatham House is, we can just jump over to our What is the New World Order article on wideshut.co.uk, because they reveal who they are themselves. In an official 75-year report, Chatham House member Lawrence Martin summarises the purpose of the institute. 75 years ago, the founders of what was to become Chatham House believed that a new world order was coming into being, and that to help its realisation, they had devised a new and fruitful way to improve understanding of international affairs. But I guess I'm just a conspiracy theorist, and this source material doesn't exist because Jon Snow doesn't talk about it on Channel 4 News. For more detail on these stories, please visit wideshut.co.uk. I've been Keelan Balderson, and I'll be back soon with another Wide Shut webcast.